help.
Yeah, I've been.
It was really.
Well, we packed it up too.
That was
I mean,
hairy.
actually,
That sounds
looking out
hairy.
your window, them big old props, oil were running the sides of them and off the back of the booth.
Guys, yeah.
And they served you a Coke while you're on board. They brought it around in the big 2-quart bottles and dumped it in a paper cup. No ice, no nothing. No.
So low budge, sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
Very
it's
low budge.
backwards. But anyhow,
Yeah.
got out into the rain forest and
Wow.
piddled around it a day or two.
There's back
It was fun. Seen
Grilled.
lots of animals.
Yeah. Oh, how fun.
Monkeys, mainly.
Yeah.
A few,
How's it going?
other odds and ends, but there's a couple of great big snakes.
Hello, Cody.
Everybody. Cody, how are you, buddy?
Had a good time.
Hey, Cody, how are you?
I'm good.
How are you doing,
This
Cody?
is fantastic.
No, I got it. I can see.
I
read
So
it
did a
right
couple
before I
days
took off out the door.
from one camp.
It's like 24 ounces.
Yeah, zooming in. That way so
It
they can see it as well.
was just
He doesn't like it.
You were in the news.
Oh, is-
He doesn't like it.
this is what was in it.
Won't let me.
Look, that's a picture of a can.
In order.
Oh.
He didn't know they were going to bring him inside.
Yeah.
Lazy truck driver didn't want to pack it.
Yeah, you just sort of have to go with the flow.
Oh,
No
yeah.
damage to
Oh,
your
it,
property?
no, it damaged
Two trucks.
two vehicles.
2 vehicles.
Yeah, what? Look at this Ford Dually. It's in pretty rough shape.
It laid on that bed.
Whoa. Any injuries?
I
Like from the driver?
What?
I never even saw him.
Oh, it's like that wreck yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah,
I pulled up, I thought it was all fatalities.
I did not.
Everybody was walking around, a little bleeding here and there.
Didn't
But
know
Oh,
about a
you
week
saw
ago.
it.
No, I
Right
got it.
after it happened?
Oh,
Oh.
Oh.
because of-
Yeah,
it was cold.
Okay.
oh, that's cold.
Well, I think I parked in front of the
Haven't been
fire
by your
hydrant,
shop,
but I
but I
can't
heard
see
about
it
it.
The
with
truck's
all the
gone
snow,
now.
So
I heard it
I
was
feel like I'm safe.
quite the sight.
Both the cops were
It's a reading glass.
I'll be okay. So far-sighted.
Oh.
Okay, I can see that, but
Yeah,
something I
like
can't
there's
read out.
traffic.
Extra
Wow.
pair of
Oh, it
reading
was
glasses.
Monday morning
Okay.
You wanna try it?
at my
Sure.
shop.
I got out of
I don't know.
bed.
Well,
I don't think
no, that's gonna hurt.
Can you read this?
Oh,
one?
I'm set.
wow, is that
Thank you.
truck on the side?
Did they just, was it the wind or did they just start slowing?
You know, it was windy that night, but I don't think it was. I think he just got
How many
cold.
cars did they?
Dude, I'm sorry,
Two.
but
Yeah.
don't even come to check.
Anybody get hurt?
Tear up any of yours? Your stuff?
Not my stuff,
Wow.
but customers.
I feel like it's
They're-
like
He's
grace
busy.
of God.
Oh, so that's not what you expect to have happen.
With all the
That's
those
crazy.
trucks
I
out
drove
there.
by. I
Like I
came
had
in
one right up barreling on
in the
my
morning and seen that over there. I was like,
rear
oh my
end.
goodness.
Just come in here
Right
today.
on those vehicles and everything.
He passed me
I think we're ready.
before he's not
Okay.
supposed to. But
Let's roll.
Are we recording? too?
Yes.
You are?
sketchy.
Everything's
It
good?
is
Sorry.
sketchy.
We were
I know. Carry on.
just something you don't see every day.
No, it isn't. Are you starting this meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just for the record, this is my first rodeo, so
Okay.
She's very subtle.
Okay, let's call the San Juan County Planning Commission meeting to order for January the 11th, 2024. Roll call. Everyone is here. That's awesome. Cody Nielsen, Melissa Rigg, John Johnston, Ann Austin, Shay Walker, Lloyd Wilson, and Trent Schaefer. Staff, Kristen Bushnell, Mike McDonald, and our illustrious San Juan County Commissioner, Sylvia Stubbs. Okay. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You leading the prayer.
Huh?
Kind of like you leading the prayer.
Oh,
You definitely want that. Okay. Everybody read the minutes quickly.
These minutes are getting out of hand.
Yeah, sorry they're pretty long-winded. There's a lot to capture with everything that's
There's a
going
lot
on.
Long-winded people.
So we want to just make sure everything is documented, but hopefully as things become clearer, they will become shorter.
That's what we're all hoping for, to become clearer someday. Oh, and Jens Nelson is on too.
Jens is.
There he is. Okay. Anybody got any comments, corrections on the
Ian's
minutes?
not scrolling.
I didn't know I had
Couple, I don't want to be nitpicky, but a couple spelling things.
Be nitpicky.
In like the first half of the minutes, it's Sitla is Stila, and then in the last half, it's actually Sitla.
Thank you.
That's just a small thing,
And they might have even changed their name from that.
maybe, yeah.
I think I saw it.
And then I don't think when it came to whatever voting on the approving the minutes, I don't think my name's on there at all.
No. It's like there was only 5.
So for both approved minutes.
I can't work my computer. I tried.
I'm trying to learn.
I have one, and I have a question. Ann, did you vote no on the glamping?
No, I
It said you voted no on the glamping.
did it.
Yeah, take a look.
I missed it.
So,
I remember you voting no on the
I abstained.
overlay.
I
Yeah.
abstained from the overlay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you voted no on the other.
So for the Cricket Bindi Ranch, you abstained?
no, she voted yes, I think. I think everybody voted yes.
Yeah, I think that was a unanimous.
That was a conditional use
Where's that one?
discussion.
And then I had a question, and I want to make sure because I keep repeating this. I thought the economic development director had said that if Gouldings goes to the Navajo Nation, we lose 28 million in tax, and the minutes say 28%.
The
Yeah.
pa-
Is that what it
We
was?
wouldn't know
The
because
paper today
we-
said 23%.
Yeah.
So-
we wouldn't know the exact amount.
Okay. Well, it's because I'm telling people, so
Yeah.
I want to make sure I have it
Yeah,
right.
it can't
It's-
be 28 million.
Yeah, 28%. Got it. Sylvia's telling
It's
me.
easier to put it off on the percent instead of the dollar amount.
Okay.
Where, I'm sorry, where is that? in our
And it doesn't need to be corrected.
Okay.
It's fine.
So I voted yay on the Valley Estates. That's correct. But what is not correct is I voted yay for the small glamping resort. And it does state in the minutes that I voted nay on that one.
Okay, so for Valley Estates, you voted yay?
Yes,
Okay, so that is correct.
that one is correct.
But for the glamping, you need to be voting yay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I abstained from the other one, the El Rancho. Is that what you were saying, Melissa?
Yep. I just noticed the glamping one because I didn't think there was any dissension.
And Mitchell Mon.
Hey, how we doing?
I can't remember this paragraph. I'm starting at.
Okay, so that's correct as well. The abstaining from El Rancho.
Yes, I abstained from El Rancho.
Okay.
Shay would shut up. These meetings go quicker. Yeah, it might be Shay. Really reflects on what a big mouth I have, doesn't it? And that's
You constantly talking.
you have noticed that.
Any other comments, corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with those fixes.
Okay. Get the date right here. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes with corrections from the Planning Commission meeting December 14th, 2023. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay. Public comment. Now, we do have a public hearing tonight. So if you're commenting on the public hearing, wait until we open that up. Anyway, so this is for anything that's not on the agenda. So we'll take in-house first. Seeing none, any online public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. Kristen, you're...
So the first one is an update of request for proposals. We put this out for finishing and implementing new ordinances. This is an informational item only. San Juan County has published a request for proposals to finish, review, and help implement the new ordinances. The firm or firms will have the responsibility of reviewing the current draft for conflicts within and between zoning districts, as well as clarifying specific ordinances not yet outlined or in compliance with state code changes. Areas of focus include new subdivision laws, nuisance ordinances, overnight accommodations, and other administrative processes as we move through the final stages of ensuring our new ordinance is complete and publicly acceptable. It is anticipated that these final stages will complete the last steps for adoption, which we are encouraging finalization this spring if possible. This includes consultant completion of maps, documents, collection and advertising of public comments, and analysis of feedback to be used for adoption and approval by the Planning Commission and the Board of San Juan County Commissioners. Our administrative staff would like a representative from the Planning Commission to join the evaluation team after the January 18th, 2024 deadline that would be available during our normal office hours, Monday through Friday. And you can see the attached RFP there and all the details. And so, can we ask at this time for who wants to sign up?
You know, I read it in the ads. What's the date of the closure again?
The 18th, January 18th.
Did anyone go to the Q&A today?
Yes, we had one.
One participant? Viable participant?
Absolutely, yeah. Just as we open that up, it's not a mandatory, and so we're open for more. Typically, we receive more. But with one, I mean, we'll take. That's all we need.
It's better than zero.
Yes, absolutely. If we don't get proposals from anybody on there, there is the state contracted vendors that state contracts, they have contracts with architects, engineers that we can go to. But this way, at least we've advertised it, gone through an RFP process. But yet there's another alternative if nobody proposes anything. But sometimes it's surprising to me is sometimes people don't show up to the virtual meeting. It's more of an explanation of the RFP itself and that process and the process we undertake. Sometimes I'll pop in and ask questions of the process. But so sometimes I'll receive proposals with people that have never attended that event or it's not required. And they already know what they do and they pretty much understand the scope of work and you just submit a proposal for that. And so,
I just figured they'd
There's
want to
still-
see who the competition is. Yeah.
and that's, sometimes they don't want to release that. So the person online today was like their marketing agent. So bigger firms will typically have a marketing agent that goes out and gets it. And then the main principals are usually behind the scenes of it.
And then I had a question, and this is just for my information. In the RFP, it said 72% of the land in the county is public and tribal, 8% is private, and so that's only 80%. What's the other 20%? I figure SITLA is,
So you got state and federal lands. that
so
are
that's
in there.
public land.
Mhm. Yeah.
So where's the other, what's the other 20%? So it
they
said
should have totaled up
72% is public and tribal,
there. Okay,
and 8% is private.
okay. No,
The rest
so
is
the
state
8%
trust.
private, everything else is federal, state.
So
State
92,
would include
92%.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big
There's
difference.
some lands. We're hoping that they incorporate.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
ethos.
Yeah.
okay.
Good catch.
So question on the attendance for that.
Hmm.
I mean, you're talking every day, 9 to 5?
We're looking at just an evaluation team that would probably be a couple hours.
And what are the
Like-
To
dates?
look
like
at. It depends on how many we get back. If we have
Yeah, that,
Once in a while.
20 apply, we're going to need to give it a day or two. But if we only have a few applicants and 2 of them aren't really, in the right direction, then it'll be a pretty easy process. So I believe it will be a one-time meeting for a
so
few
this is
hours.
just for interviewing?
No.
It's
This is
To help with the
evaluation.
progress.
It's to look at what they have submitted hard copy to us.
Oh, okay.
And is
So
it
what I
to
do
score
is-
them against the
Mhm.
criteria? Yeah.
Right.
So in the RFP, there's the matrix that we're scoring off of. So we've already tipped our hat to, okay, here's what we're gonna evaluate you on and score you on. In that evaluation process is literally just probably about an hour of it sitting down as a collective group and doing the formal evaluation. But the expectation is you've come to that evaluation meeting, already read the proposals and scored on your own score sheet. And then we sit down and accumulate the scores, figure out who's the top, discuss any proposals, concerns between those, and then get that final ranking from everybody submitted, and then go off of that. And so it's so for me, in the past, I've had where some proposals will take me about an hour to read. So if I get, 5 entities with proposals, that's about 5 hours of just reading through their proposal, and then I go back through and then score them, and then come to the committee meeting
Right.
and have that discussion.
Well, I'd love to
Lots of
volunteer.
homework.
I just wanted to make sure that it was not like taking.
No, we're not going to be here all week 8 to 5.
Yeah, we don't go.
Please no.
We don't review each one individually as a team. It's you come to the meeting having already read the proposals and then scored them, and then we get together. Okay, what are your concerns here with this firm, and this is where I scored them at. Just kind of have that discussion. Sometimes there's concerns, and as I've talked to some of the RFPs, some people will propose a range instead of a fixed cost. It's like, okay, how are we going to score this one on this category because this one's a range and everybody else is a fixed cost. And so we work out as a team kind of that difference on there and try to get apples to apples on how we're approaching our scoring, and then total them up, and then okay, here's where we're going. I put in there that in some RFPs, and I don't think I have it in this one, where we may go into a interview process. If there's two that are neck and neck, then you can opt to interview. The hard part with the interviews is it's all just subject to an individual's interpretation and whether or not, I mean, sometimes when you're interviewing a candidate, you'll be looking at their dress and their appearance and things like that that may weight different in the score rather than can they actually do it. And so I hate to go into the interviews. It's kind of a last resort type thing. We're hoping from their proposals that we can select off of that.
I'm in.
Okay. I mean, if anybody else would like to, would be glad to have more evaluators and less. So
As long as the meeting's on a Monday.
okay, we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And this is just to select who is approved to do all of this work, right? Correct. Okay.
You skipped number 3.
I noticed I skipped a page, so my apologies. Hey, first rodeo. I just got bucked off. It is number 3 right now. We needed to have an update regarding the Planning Commission renewals or vacancies. This is an informational item only. So the Planning Commission term for the representatives from LaSalle and Blanding is due this year. San Juan County has posted requests for interest in the newspaper following our standard process. Renewals are allowed for the representatives from Blanding and from LaSalle to renew their commitment for another 4-year term if interested.
Sure, I'd love to.
For the record, we did not have anybody throw their name in, so we would love it if you want to keep going.
Talk to me about it, like, hey, do you like doing it? Do you want to do it? Or if not, can I do it? And I'm like, well, I plan on doing it. And they're like, that's fine.
So do you need a letter of interest from them, or
We would take it from tonight. It's the discussion
Yeah.
from tonight, and then just recommend. We literally have been advertising for a couple of weeks and haven't.
I was gonna say last time mine came up, we didn't, so we just inquired here and said I was.
Just said I'll do it.
I thought I'd say again I would do it. So
last time me and Trent's came up, we had to get interviewed.
Yeah.
interviewed, really? Well,
And I think they went quite well.
I do have a question, like there, because I've never really known. I mean, I don't know. I was asked to be here, and anyways, how does the board? Are they all district? Is there an at large?
There's
You're
one
the
at
at large, 2 at
Yeah.
large.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm at large.
You're at large.
No.
Lloyd, your special service.
So Lloyd is a special service
Oh
district.
yes,
large,
because you
yeah.
took Cole's spot. He was
Yep.
Spanish Valley.
Pretty
That's
sure
right.
that's
That's
Yeah.
right. You are at
Mel
large.
was at large.
You tell me, Shay.
Which is
Which is Shay now.
Okay.
And then we've got
Same as Cody, I
Monticello,
just do what I'm told.
LaSalle, Bluff, Landing.
Spanish Valley.
So
John is interested as well.
Excellent.
Whether
I am.
Thanks
whether
for
he
your
wants to
commitment.
or not.
Good.
Put his name.
Perfect.
now we would hold interviews if we had more candidates that had shown an interest in it. But
What? Were
They're
we
lining up.
Yeah.
They're lining up just to get me and you out.
Yeah.
And me.
So, Mac, are you saying there was 0 interest?
0.
Which means, when yours comes due, like, really, you gotta really think about it.
Well, when you guys came up,
Yours might.
weren't we talking about
What?
the commission wanted to age us out? Like so
We
many
reviewed the
terms.
bylaws, and so we're tracking that as well as with the bylaws. There's kind of a time limitation on there, and so we may have to relook at bylaws and just see if it still makes sense.
The ones that Alex wrote, the ones that were done when me and Trent.
Correct.
So in that, this is from Alex, is it does say that you can always put back in for it. Alex made sure that writing was in there.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that.
Mm-hmm. That was his exact words.
I don't have anybody coming in.
Yep.
And you still have willingness from people that are on the board, and why not? So there were two sets of bylaws. And I got confused in my head.
Yeah,
We had to change, and then we had.
Yeah, so what was it? 20, right?
It's like you're right.
Yeah.
Your term, right? Both of you expiring.
It can't be that long.
You're still good for 2 more years.
How long?
So it's 20,
So it'd been 2 years ago.
22. And yeah, that's when Alex and Walter rewrote those bylaws
And,
by request of the commission.
and we had to read them.
Mhm.
I requested the
Just as a reminder, whoever we just let in, if you can make sure that your mic is muted, please. Or everybody check that your mic is muted. Okay, so jumping to item number 5. Thank you. We'll check in to make sure we're in line with that, and thanks for signing on for another 4 years. Item number 5 is review of upcoming 2024 year of Planning Commission. This is an open discussion at the request of Chairman Schaefer at our previous meeting, that the floor is open to ideas from the Planning Commission of items we'd like to accomplish in the upcoming year. So I'll just open it up.
You know, every year we talk about goals, and it seems like our only thing that we work on constantly, month after month, year after year, is these ordinances. So we've been dealing with a unfinished set of ordinances from 2019, and now it's 24. And we've been working on these again for 4 years, or 3.5 years, but you know, I'd really like, and getting this RFP out, that's really a good thing, that we can just continue the momentum and get this thing adopted and out of our hair, because it has caused us so much grief, so many mistakes. So I'm excited to get it moved forward.
So are we.
Yeah, so are our attorneys.
Anyway, does anybody have anything pressing you'd like to see?
Go ahead.
Road department. We need to have more involvement with the road department on these, because we're still kind of going back and forth on private and public, and what we're going to require, even if it is a private road. What are we requiring? I mean, are we requiring anything? And at what point do we have 300 private roads in 3 square miles within the county, and then all of a sudden the county has to take over them at one point or another? Why are we not just making them public roads and making them be up to county spec from day one? I mean, there's no reason that we are not requiring anything that is not a minor subdivision to be to county spec and taken by the county. Because one day, because we've already went through this before,
Over and over again.
one day the county's gonna end up taking over it, and then the county's tax dollars has to bring up the roads to their spec in today's age, and where the developers got off scot-free. You know, they've just put in some gravel roads and walked away with their cash, and you know, and now the rest of the taxpayers have to pay for those roads again.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want this county to get to the point where we have 3,000 miles of private roads all over this county. They need to be public roads, because that's part of that infrastructure as it grows. One little road comes off another road, off another road, off another road, and if we don't have control to be able to make sure that these roads are being brought up and being able to be maintained, and not throwing it in the hands of an HOA or within some CCNRs, I think we need to make sure that we can incorporate planning and zoning and the road department together. Because even if you know, our road department needs to throw some more stuff in their mix to make sure that these are the roads that they're going to adopt, that they're up to par, that there's a bond on them. You know, maybe there's a 10-year bond. Whoever puts the roads in, that there's a 10-year bond that you know, the road will not fail. We're not going to have sinkholes. You're not going to, you know, so on and so forth. That way, we're kind of ahead of the game. Because I think that's what we need to do. Because I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, and that's still one of our biggest arguments in these subdivisions is the roads. And so now we've got a couple brand new subdivisions that have a 30-foot wide road. Well, that does not meet county.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to have room for eventually sidewalks and curb and gutter and, you know, storm drains and whatever comes along. So to not be on top of that, we're Moab. It's hindsight.
So would this be a new ordinance? Or how would you?
No, it would just be the requirement of the road department.
The ordinance is in place, and that big, long, probably 25-page thing that I gave you on the subdivision checklist, on everything you have to do, those step 1, step 2, it's all in the ordinance, and it requires all that. I just don't think we have been following it. But I think if you would look at that thing that I drafted, and go through each step, it will tell, it's pretty easy, and it tells you exactly what you have to do. And it tells you on what's in the ordinance, it's just following the ordinance, what is required on those roads. And it is required that they post a bond. It is required that they develop it to county standards. Everything you're talking about, it's in there.
But at the same time, the road department will not adopt the roads. They do not want to.
Well, let me.
So how do we push it to make people do it up to our county standards with the bonds and everything, if the road department will not adopt them?
Take the road.
Well, let me have a talk with TJ, because I went and talked to him once. That was one of the issues. I sent it to him, and he looked at it and had some issues with it. But I think he thought it was a great idea, and I think is very proactive about it. So let's find out what the differences are, and if we need to revise that thing, we can revise it. Maybe put it on the agenda, have him come here, and so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, TJ has been really good. He wants to work better together and be a little more in the loop on things going on. So
we work together.
He's been really
good. It's just well, this has come up so many times.
And it'll kind of continue. If you think of what are the government services that governments should provide, and as you look at, and I don't know if you probably didn't catch it, when we bring to you, and it's in our ordinance right now, when we bring to you these preliminary plats of, developments subdividing within there, in our subdivision ordinance, it requires a maintenance agreement. Now, Mitch touched on the bond side of it. That's a little bit a step higher. But in all of those subdivisions, there was supposed to be a maintenance agreement. That maintenance agreement is, if that individual wants to subdivide their 1 acre into these quarter acres, they have a road in the middle of it. That maintenance agreement lays out that maintenance right up front. And in our ordinance, it already has the road standards that are in there that we required. But on a small subdivision like that, the expectation is that they're not a public road. Right. It's just a private subdivision. So that cul-de-sac that's going in there, we make sure it meets fire code. That you can turn a fire engine around in there. But the maintenance agreement that's recorded on that property will dictate that now that I've split this into 4, this person has this portion of the maintenance to it. And so that you'll, by those approvals in our subdivision ordinance,
That's already in place. Now, the expectation and where TJ is coming from on it is, I'm not going to, it's not him. He's not the decision maker of the roads. It's the commission. It's like the commission doesn't accept a small road. They've got to be developed, and in that process on a larger development. So you fast forward to Balance Rock. In Balance Rock, through that overlay process, you've seen me like, okay, hey, wait, we're going to have to slow down on this and go through all the steps of that overlay district. In that process there, we were able to say, okay, we're anticipating these roads coming through this area, and it's going to be a public thoroughfare, whether you like it or not, because it's going to go down into Sheik's development that you guys just approved yesterday or last planning commission meeting. That's going to come down to him, and it's going to continue on down and potentially go down further into the Sitla lands. And so it's like, okay, let's plan for that now and make sure you develop to that standard, like you're saying, so that even though we're not going to ask the commissioners right now to accept that road, by law, in 10 years, if the public's using that road to get to another area, it naturally becomes a public road. And so part of that efforts is when we're looking at planning and developing and these zoning changes come through, it's taking that holistic look of the entire area. Okay, what are we doing? What's this subdivision doing that's going to impact down below into these other areas, and making sure that we're working with the developers on that respect, saying, okay, this is going to lead to another area, so it'll become a public road. Let's develop to the standards today that we can accept them in the future when 10 years from now. And so Balance Rock, they were willing to do that. Now they're also working with Sitla on the road coming in to get to there, knowing that that's going to be a public road coming through Allen Street and right there next to the clinic. And so all of that is should be always taken into consideration on our planning. And that's kind of why I like the Sitla community structure plan that they have, because we know kind of thereabouts where the roads are going to be. And as these developments come to fruition or even come to the table for entitlement, we can help plan for those collector streets, those arterial routes. But it will always be, if there's just a small road that doesn't meet our standards, and it's not leading to somewhere that the public's going to use, then there's no obligation on the county's part to accept those. I mean, we've got communities that have developed out here, and we've got people moving in now that say, hey, this should be a county road. It's like, it doesn't meet our standards. It doesn't lead to anywhere. So we're not going to accept those roads. We don't have enough staff. We have so many miles of road here, and we don't have enough staff, nor could we ever employ enough staff to adequately maintain paved roads in this county everywhere. But we do have to control it, and it's through the ordinances that you can control those and make sure that, as we're looking at the whole broad picture, it's like, okay, we want a road through here. Now we do have to get to the point where we have a travel management plan, and that transit plan that kind of shows the roadways where we want them. One of them that we've got to work on is this frontage road along 191 in Spanish Valley. How are we going to get a frontage road there? Now the development is starting to come. I'm trying to get UDOT to come in and put a conservation easement through there so that we can kind of tell the developers, okay, we want this frontage road through here, work with us. Some of these developers are coming forward, and that discussion is being had. It's like, okay, let's set your building back a little and let them work with your parking lot so that we can try to get a road through here. But that all comes through planning and making sure that as these developments come, that we're mindful of not just, sometimes we get that myopic view where we're just looking at that individual thing that we're reviewing tonight, and we're not actually considering, okay, what's the impact? What do we need to make sure the developers are aware of? And that's part of staff's responsibility as well. And we've got the road department tied into this review process now, so that as we're looking at it, that they're checking off, say, okay, yeah, we're safe here, and then if we know that it's going to be a public road, the road department will be right there with them to make sure that it's developed at that standard. So when it comes time, 10 years from now, that everything is ready and everything is wide enough so we can get a snow plow down through there, and that they have the appropriate sidewalks, bike lanes, things like that we want in the area. And it's all kind of prefaced off of the ordinances that are created with it. And we have it in there. We also need to follow our ordinances and make sure that we're making those individuals adhere to the standards, like the maintenance agreement. I mean, that's been in there for a long time. And I don't know why people didn't see it, but to me, when I saw that, I'm like, you need to get a recorded document. You need to tell me how you're going to maintain your cul-de-sac and acknowledge that this will never be a public road. And so we're trying to tackle that now up front.
Yeah, because we've never done that.
Yeah, it'll help us. Definitely help us. And then it'll become a town in some future day in our city, and then hopefully then your city will then be able to take off from there. But part of it too, you know, the Balance Rock Resort is we're not letting them put in the dirt road. You know, they're going to bring it up to asphalt standard, which is required, you know, with the sidewalks or the paths that are through the community, to help us get to that point. Because it can't be borne by the county. We don't have the funds. We don't have funds just sitting aside for futuristic roads. We can hardly pay for what we have. So hopefully that
we're broke.
well, not we have money coming in, but just it's to maintain what we've got, and so they just pay us a skosh of that tax. Hopefully that helps a little.
Yep. Any other goals, and you that you're?
Yeah, I was hoping we would review the bylaws again. I think we're supposed to do it anyway every year, right?
I don't think the planning. I can check. I don't know right off the top of my head.
I thought it's just something that you go over and make sure.
The bylaws are created by the commission.
Oh, so any changes? So are they supposed to review them? Who reviews?
I don't think so, but I can check. It wouldn't make sense to change your bylaws every year.
But reviewing them is not a
I'll review them and check and see.
because there is something in the bylaws that I think going forward we might want to tweak again. I know you don't want to hear this after the 2 reviews, but as far as that eligibility criteria goes for the planning commission to for someone to serve on the planning commission, I know in the past it's been language around, well, you must have land use experience in order to be qualify. But I would like to maybe have an objective discussion about the benefits, putting language in there. I know we changed it to something where it said it was preferred, land use experience was preferred.
But not required.
But not required.
Correct.
But eventually putting in language that opens it up to that paints the planning commission more as a variety of people rather than we would prefer if everybody was a developer or engineer on the planning commission. Instead of saying that, let's say, you know, we want a balanced board.
Okay, let me look at it and see.
And that's, you know, it's kind of a small thing, but I think it's legitimate to ask for citizen planners to be on the board. And so that you get that wider representation of the residents.
Okay. Yeah, let me look at that and just see.
It just makes it more equitable.
What that review is. Changing them often like that is a little bit difficult, but let me look and see if there's that requirement. So I know like on some of our ordinances, we have that where you're supposed to be looking at them, you know, every year to make sure you're still in adherence, you know, with state code changes.
Well, and things like that, like some of the little details about, okay, the packet is supposed to be, you know, submitted by this date, you know, maybe we need to rethink that. Maybe a week in advance is too long or is too much to ask. Maybe we need it to be a little more flexible or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it has that requirement in the bylaws, but I'll look.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. Maybe it'd be worth reviewing it.
Okay.
So that it fits the current commission outlook.
Okay. So you want the Board of Commissioners to review that, if that is, or
Well, I thought it would be the planning commission can look at it and make suggestions.
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
county commissioners.
yeah,
as to
absolutely.
what
The adoption
might,
is with
um,
the legislative body. And
right.
so
Because
okay.
I think there's probably several of us that haven't really reviewed the bylaws, the
Mhm.
newest ones that came out in whenever 2020.
Yeah, I know our new
And it'd be
planning
good to
commissioners
know
when I've seen
what
it.
it actually says, and if there's something in there that's not working, that maybe it needs to be
Tweaked.
tweaked. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, in a positive
Yeah, we
way.
can take a look.
You know, not trying
Yeah.
to, you know, change anything drastic, but there may be some things that could make it work better for the staff and
Mhm.
for the commissioners.
Yep, more functional. Yep.
And it not hanging out there like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, following ordinances is what I'm looking at. And then my other one was, you know, I think there's a lot of the public that would like to have current information on who serves on the planning commission. I know it changes time to time, but on the website, I don't know if that's updated and or email addresses for people.
That's the one we got to fix. I received it. Well, you have the public comment before you. There's like, hey, I don't have the new emails for the new planning commissioners on there. In the past, it was something that they never advertised on there, and so they've never done that here. But I think we at least have to have the contact information for a chair on there. But it makes sense, especially on this type of a body, to have those emails. They can constantly come to us at any time and get those. And that was the request today is, hey, will you please forward this public comment to the commissioners that I don't have the emails to? So we've released them before. It wasn't like it's a private information. We'll work on our website side of it.
And I don't know legally if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but at least term.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
I just have a
Names
question
and
about that. So
terms.
like how like you know we've had times where like Balance Rock or whatever
Yep.
we've had lots of emails, and I always figured I guess I should pay more attention, but those were forwarded by
From
staff.
Scott to you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That it wasn't
Other-
necessarily direct. Either,
Yeah.
See, and
which
I
is
would rather that.
Forward right to you.
Yeah, because we talked about this a long time ago about us getting actual
County.
County emails. Yeah.
and it just never come about. 'Cause
No.
I guess it costs so much per
It would.
whatever.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you know, these are our private emails.
They
so
are.
If people have things like this coming in, they come to staff. Staff forwards them to us. I mean, I understand the availability of your commission, but at the same time, that I mean, I just hate all our
Yeah.
information.
There is,
being out there.
isn't there something legally about having a private email associated?
So,
They can do a grammar request on any of
no,
our
they
emails.
can, yes. And so, and we've had those requests before, even from the attorneys. There is a way, there's the functional way where you can create just one holistic email account. And behind the email account, it distributes to everybody. So the public doesn't have all of your individual emails. They just have one. So if they know that if I send an email to San Juan County Planning Commission, it's automatically distributed to all. Let me look at seeing how we can set that up because I think that'll be probably easier, manageable. When I was on Planning Commission in Farmington, it was just common that I would receive public comments through my personal email, and it is a pain. But for me, I just took it as part of volunteering to be a planning commissioner, and it just kind of gave me the insight that what they're seeing before I made the decision.
I think it's fine if there's one email. That
I think that'll be easier.
emails too, but I think they don't necessarily know that. Oh, this is how you reach San Juan County Planning Commission is through this email, whether or not it's Trent's or Kristen's or whoever's email. But if on our website we had the names of the commissioners, what their terms are, and this is how you contact them.
Yeah, I know with the commissioners, they all have county emails, so it's a little bit easier, and it just goes right to their county email. But let me look and see what I can do to create that just planning commission email, and then make sure that it can be forwarded to you. There's a way in Google that I can set that up to where
That would be nice.
any
Then
email
you don't
comes
have to
in.
worry about you or.
Well, and I think it'd be
having to
easier for the
forward
public as well. In coming through that account, it'll also be easier on the grandma request side of it, just to manage because they're coming automatically through that public email.
Is that a legitimate goal?
Absolutely, those sound good.
I like it.
Good ideas.
Yeah, it's gotta be
Let me
close.
drive.
Saw you.
I don't know how we got there, but we're back.
Any other goals?
How about the overlay map for the whole county? Where are we on that? Showing subdivisions and I mean, like out at Old LaSalle and LaSalle. And
Oh, that's part of 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be part of that RFP
Yeah,
to make sure things are accurate and up to date.
Oh, are they?
A third party to help finish doing the mapping and putting the ordinances with the mapping. So.
Okay.
That was mine too. Just kind of, I still worry about this map. I've never really seen this magical map, and I just think there's still a lot more tweaking to be done. I mean, I so hope we can do it this year. Like we're pushing, but I just. I mean, I sit here and I have people ask me all the time around Blanding, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like, we can zoom in here on the, but
Yeah.
I don't.
And we haven't received the parcel fabric back quite yet from Southeast Utah Associates.
Correct.
And so that's kind of our step one is we're waiting for them to get that done. After that, it should be a pretty quick process for us to color it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
But it's getting that.
Government timeline.
It's getting the parcel fabric accurate with everything that's platted on there up to date and.
Part of the requirements of the consultant is to finalize those for us. So they'll come in, they'll produce alternatives to maps, and then that's after that, and we'll bring them to you before we start going out to the public. And so you'll have a chance to see all those changes that'll be coming. The timeline that we have on that for the consultant is hopefully they can get everything done by March, but really that's thinking that consultant is ready to go tomorrow and we can contract with them and get it going. And so there, when we talked to the one today, you know, they have a GIS team that does it for them. It's kind of common in architects and that this is what they do. They do it constantly. The Spanish Valley map that I updated, that took him a day to get that to me. And so it's pretty quick. It's just a matter of getting them here. And so we're closer than we were last year.
Okay.
At least
But
by
we're in
retirement
just as big of a hurry
But
as
we
you
gotta
are.
have
because-
we gotta have this done before Lloyd gets elected to other offices.
Yeah. So we have a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it's in the works.
Any other goals or desires? If not,
really want to hear any more? Or?
no.
I do have one more I thought about the other day. And I can't, Mac was there, we were all there before county commission meeting, and we had, I forgot, I was actually gonna bring the manual he gave us that day.
The training.
The training.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really good.
We've got to get more.
It's the only one I've had, and it was 23 the whole time I'd been here. We talked about it, gave us a manual, but to actually throw questions at him that day,
We'll have
I
that
thought
back
I
again.
learned a lot. And
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. Just as staff, we met. I think it was yesterday. My days are sometimes a run on sentence, and as we met yesterday, that was one of the things we talked about. I mean, we've got 2 new planning commissioners that weren't here during that training, and getting them that training as well. And so we'll work on that for you because I think overall it'll help all of us. I know it helped the commission as well when we had the individual come down and just give us that training on planning and I mean, that was where we learned this on the roads, because we were always like, we don't want the roads, but you know, that the trainer came down and says it's state law that after 10 years, the public's using it as a public thoroughfare, it's yours. And so it's things like that that help us all out, come on the same page. And I think even as we adopt the new ordinance, we're all going to have to set and go through those and educate ourselves on the new zoning. New laws come out. So it should be a constant, just guaranteed that every year we're training planning commissioners on items. And so,
Well, I just read the paper today, and my wife's like, "Well, you guys are always in the paper," you know. And I was like, "Well, it's we have 2 attorneys come to every meeting, and they're trying to keep us out of trouble." But we just talk. Even with my wife, I'm like, sometimes your hands are really tied just because of what your legal responsibility is as a commissioner, and so
Yes.
it was just educational to me, and I'd love to do it again.
and you'll
Good.
continue to see a process refinement. You know, the checklist that Mitch produced for the subdivision and the plating and everything for our surveyors and that. Things like that will continue to come forward throughout this next year as we go through and try to help not only citizens out understanding our process, but also you as planning commissioners, so that you okay, you know, hey, we skipped this step, or we need to go back this direction, to just kind of help everybody be on the same page. You know, we hear a lot, and Lloyd has a good memory and a good history of, you know, what we've done in the past. You know, but as we get these new ordinances, now we're going to be black and white, you know, but it was not having clear information. I know I spoke to Kristen, and she was like, hey, what zoning is this property in? And it was in LaSalle, next to the highway. And she's like, is this A1? Because this is the color matching the map. I'm like, oh, no. It's like, if you scroll in all the way, so it's all blurry, you'll notice this 1,000-foot corridor. You know, but it's making sure that all of our zoning and ordinances need to be clear.
Yep.
There shouldn't be this,
Absolutely.
oh, hey, are you aware that there's this 1,000-foot in there? And so we've got to get better.
Well, a simple thing on our maps is the colors. They're terrible. I mean, you can't tell what's light gray or gray green or gray yellow.
I think there will always be those things. You know, we just need to go from 1 million down to 1,000. You know what I mean? Because even going forward, I really hope that we can all realize that things get missed, and to be equitable, maybe things need to be continued to be revised, and
that's planning.
You know,
yeah.
that is, you know,
that's
and
planning. It's not done. Yeah.
But land use law stays the same generally, unless the legislature changes something. And so understanding for us, the big one is conditional use permits and how those get applied for, what the process is, and the requirements for whether or not we can approve or not. I think that's a big one, because that's the only one that we have the authority to approve or not approve. It doesn't have to go to the commission. So I think that's an important discussion item or training topic.
It's conditional use permits and the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what the applicant has to do and what our role is and all of that. And I would say
conditions.
What? But
Permissible with conditions.
reasonable conditions.
Reasonable. 100%.
Right, and is the onus, on the applicant to suggest what those, conditions are. That kind of thing I feel like we should make sure we're on the same page about. But then that makes me think of one more discussion item, which is, as we're looking at the Ludmo new ordinances, maybe we need to have an objective discussion about the pros and cons of having a separate ordinance, subordinance or whatever, for Spanish Valley. I'm bringing it up again just because Cody brought up a good point when it came to the short-term rentals. last time. You know, if you put a blanket ordinance over the whole county, is it worth discussing?
I mean, I think having the two separated right now has caused so many problems, and we can discuss it, but I think having one law-abiding ordinance is the way to go, because otherwise and it's easier for you guys because you know exactly this is our ordinance, this is what we're operating off of. You don't have to study two that have these minute details that are changed over here but not over here. And so I think it'll
I tend to
having
agree
one
with
has
Juan a little
clarity.
bit, and I know, like Lloyd and I, we usually agree, but but I really do. I just feel like there are some times in Spanish Valley, it's not my business. I really look at it that way. It is. We're all part of the same county, revenue, development. I understand that, but if there's concerns and things that they feel deeply about that I don't, then who am I to tell them? You know, I mean, if a majority of them and want a lighting ordinance, you know, or whatever, I don't. You know what I mean? I just shoot my neighbors out if I don't like it. You know. But anyways, like
Public
like
record.
but I'm just saying, sometimes there's those things that may not work for both parts of the community. I see how they're overran. I see some of the ATV problems they have, the overcrowding, the big events, you know, but on the same hand, you know, like I read the paper in Elaine, like tourism, whatever. Well, we want more, you know, we definitely want more. We want more surrounding Blanding. I think Monticello does. We want to encourage people to spend money and spend, you know, their time and effort to do tours or whatever they feel like they can pull people to our community. I mean, we're a poor community. Let's do what we can. But on the same hand, I see how you guys have specific issues to that community, and we are in this we're not really, but we always talk about what do you call it when you become a town? Incorporation. Yeah. You know, we all think that's the goal, but is it the goal 24, 28, or 38? Nobody knows, you know. And
Ask Lloyd.
so anyways, that would just be, I mean, I see both sides, but I do feel like I don't necessarily want to be lumped in the area surrounding Blanding, and I totally feel their pain, and I understand some of their issues, and they ought to have a little bit of control and freedom for some of those things. What do you say?
I think
Lloyd?
we're on the same page, but
So you agree with Cody?
it don't happen very often. But
Oh.
but no, I think we're on the same page because I mean, we want the same things. We want the growth. We want the tax revenue. Maybe my taxes won't be $6,000 a year. You know, I mean, we want the growth. I don't see the problems that everybody speaks about. I know Ann gets a little irritated with the
And
busy
does,
Spanish
though.
Valley Drive, which it's understandable. I don't get near what you get.
You know, I'm not bringing up these issues of Spanish Valley.
No, but I'm just trying to make it in comparison to Blanding and.
Well, I
and
guess
other
my point
communities.
is not to make it difficult by suggesting having separate ordinances for Spanish Valley. I'm looking at it from an economic standpoint. In the county, it's so huge. We have so many different regions, and they're economically driven by different things and have different resources. And strategically, to grow our county to the best optimum results, maybe you need to look at them as micro kind of zones. And Spanish Valley is obviously got some real potential sooner than some of these other ones. So maybe.
And I think perhaps we can address that in our districting, right? Like what you're saying, like this is more of a commercial zone or a flex zone. So when we come up with those zoning maps, that, you know, that's how you make those allowances, but we don't necessarily need a separate ordinance for it.
Okay. Well, it's a suggestion of a discussion topic, weighing pros and cons, trying to be objective, and look at it strategically for the whole county.
And hopefully,
what would work for
whoever ends up being our consultant team,
we'll see what they
can have those alternative maps of, do you want more residential in Spanish Valley? Do you want more commercial? Do you want these flex points? And so hopefully we can have several alternatives for what that could lend itself to.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move into our public hearing. So we need a motion.
A motion, we move into a public hearing.
I'd love to second it.
Okay.
I agree with Lloyd.
Starting to happen way too much.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move into a public hearing. And this will be, the Planning Commission says we are considering changes to the San Juan County zoning ordinance to clarify that short-term rental uses are prohibited in the SVR district and make recommendations to the San Juan County Board of Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay. I know we've got a couple online.
If you want, you can have.
We have Mitch here kind of give an overview of what we're looking at, and it's that ordinance to amend the San Juan County zoning ordinance to clarify that short-term rental uses is prohibited in the Spanish Valley residential district. Basically what we're seeking tonight is for you to consider this and make a recommendation to the commissioners, to the Board of Commissioners, for final approval and adoption of this ordinance. And so we'll turn the time over to Mitch. He can explain what we're looking at tonight.
Man, you guys are long-winded.
I agree with you.
I think.
Just wait, here it comes.
Well, after much deliberation, I think one of the impetus behind this is we got an opinion from the Utah Ombudsman's office that did a comprehensive review of our ordinances in a particular case that was in litigation, but they issued an advisory opinion, and in that opinion they advised that the short-term rentals, the way the ordinance stands now, the short-term rentals are allowed, and it come down to the definition of a lodging house in the definitions. And so in essence, that as the ordinance stands today, short-term rentals are allowed in the SVR district up to 4 occupants. And however, how you can enforce that, I have no idea. You can't. And so we got with Bart Kuntz, and he drafted this. It's very simple and very self-explanatory. He changes the definition of a short-term rental as a dwelling or a portion of a dwelling that the owner of record or the leasee of the dwelling or the portion of a dwelling leases to another for occupancy for fewer than 30 consecutive days. So that's basically from here on out, if we pass this, if you recommend this, that would be the definition of a short-term rental. Basically anything that's any part of a dwelling that is rented or to another, to a third party for occupancy for less than 30 days. And so if we go to page 2 of this, I guess you don't.
Oh, it's trying to get
We're
there.
trying to get there.
We can't make it move or do anything. Been trying for an hour.
He's
I
even
know, I
tried to
was-
move it like this.
Not a touch screen.
I know. Let me try to get it. Continue on.
Okay, well, I'll read this. So that would be changing the definition, and then the following language is inserted at the end of the section on uses. No short-term rental is allowed in the SVR district, and the Spanish Valley overnight accommodations overlay shall not be applied to the SVR district, regardless of the number of occupants. No hotel, apartment hotel, motel, tourist court, apartment court, commercial condominium for short-term rental, bed and breakfast, boarding houses, lodging house, resort, commercial campground, or any other variation of overnight accommodation intended for nightly rental is permitted in the SVR district. So it goes through every possible dwelling that you could possibly have, and basically just says it's not permitted in the SVR district, regardless of the number of occupants.
So,
Yeah.
One question. I thought state law said we could not deny a bed and breakfast in a residential area because it is a owner occupied. I thought that was a state law.
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
I can't imagine the state.
Because of it being owner occupied, they could. Because I think Grand County went through some lawsuits on some B&Bs on that, and they won, or the residents won in the residential area because it was a state law. So, just curious.
Yeah, well, I'll take a look at that. But yeah, I'm not aware of that.
And I do think you bring up a valid point, Lloyd, where there is a difference between someone there on the premise
Owner occupied.
and
Owner
this,
Yep.
you know, the key code's this and nobody's around.
That's the only one I seen in there that I think would.
But I'm still not sure where it falls.
Well, and that may be something you know that you can recommend to the with that revision if you don't want bed and breakfast to be included in that.
I just want to make sure that it's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
With state.
I mean, part of my hesitancy is I don't see the state passing a law like that. I think they would leave that up to the individual counties in their individual ordinances. I don't think the state gets that specific, but I will
But
check
they might
into it.
base it off of a certain lawsuit that was pursued and
Yeah.
won within the state, and that's what they would be.
Yeah, but again, I'll look into it. So that's basically it. And then we have to amend the table. That table right there looks like we have it up. Spanish Valley residential district uses is amended to include the parenthetical excluding short-term rental following the residential uses category. So the only thing, that table is there in the ordinance. The only thing we're doing is after residential uses, we're adding that parenthetical excluding short-term rental, just to make sure everything is consistent. And that's basically it. So three revisions, but basically all it says is that from here on out, if this thing is recommended and passed by the commission, that it clarifies that short-term rentals are not allowed in the SVR district.
And the P stands for personal and C for commercial?
Permitted.
Permitted and conditional.
Oh,
And C is
stands for
conditional.
conditional.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
Question on the accessory buildings. You got permissible and conditional. What's the line there? Like an ADU unit, is normally 1,000 square foot or smaller, which is pretty common with the residents where you have a mother-in-law or whatever they used to call them, mother-in-law houses.
yeah.
Is that a permissible?
You know, that's a good question.
What's the definition of the accessory building?
Yeah,
Accessory buildings are sheds, it can be
Mhm.
barns, ADU units.
Yeah.
It goes
So
on
like
and on.
anything that's not attached.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think the
basically.
ADU
So it could be
would fall
ADU?
under the above
Alternative dwelling?
Well, it's
No.
Mother-in-law?
Mm-mm.
accessory dwelling unit.
Accessory building.
Is- I'm not sure that falls under accessory building.
Yeah, I don't think an ADU would fall under accessory.
Well,
What,
but it's
what are you saying it falls under?
Well-
What was it? What was your question?
So, what falls under accessory buildings and uses?
what would have to go
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
definition,
Of
and
the
I don't have
ordinance
it here.
itself,
Any
so-
accessory building is beyond the original footprint of the residence.
Yeah.
Are you
I'm-
looking at the ordinance on the definition?
No, I just.
Okay, it'd be defined in our ordinance. of what-
Yeah, I think the first place to go is to find out what the definition
What the
in the
definition
ordinance is. But still,
But still, the question is it permissible or conditional?
yeah. So I'll have to.
Ask Jens to look real fast. Jens is online. See if he can pull that ordinance.
Is anybody
It's a
online?
building or structure, the use of which is incidental and subordinate in size and, oh, no, that's an accessory building. So there's an accessory building and there's an accessory dwelling unit, separately defined.
Yeah, we don't have an ADU ordinance currently, I don't think. But we will with this new one.
it's in the new one.
But yeah, there in the new one, it's different definition.
I mean, they are a permissible use. As of last month, we've been given permits for them. So, in the SVR, even though they're not in our SVR, they are a permissible use.
Are they in our current land use ordinance?
Which does not supersede your SVR ordinance.
It does. If
I
you don't
do.
have it, I thought if we don't have a certain ordinance in our SVR, then you go to the countywide one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's not spelt out that in uses within that ordinance, you go to another ordinance to give it more uses.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, I do. I see what you're saying.
That wouldn't make sense.
Right, got it.
But here's my question. So, but it changes the wording for the 30 days.
Uh-huh.
So you could do something over 30 days.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
Long-term rental. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you have I'm just throwing it out there. If I have an ADU in Spanish Valley residential, and I want to rent it to travel nurses for 60 days, I'm still allowed.
Yeah.
Yep.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 28 days, isn't it? They call it off at 28 days.
They
They
what?
call it off the shortest month of the year.
Oh.
Anything over 20 or anything less than 28 days is short-term rental. So
Well, here it's 30 days
Yeah, it's
within the
it defines it
definition.
as 30. In the definition,
You can scroll up.
you
Scroll
can't
up.
scroll.
No, I've tried that and it does not work.
Up a little
Oh.
more.
I can scroll.
You've
up.
got it.
Keep- yeah,
There
right
it
there.
is. Yeah.
I can drive.
So you cannot rent it in the month, leap year. So
Okay.
that month you have to do 2 months.
So to the point that everyone else is making, does that mean that you need to add another column in here for accessory dwelling units, just to make that super clear?
I think we do.
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Well,
Another
On the table.
On the
Uh,
table?
It needs to be
Another
another
column.
line item. Mhm.
Okay, as
Yeah,
as
there's
to
two different
differentiate
definitions.
between when it's permitted and when it's conditional.
Well, and that there's a difference between an accessory building and an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
And we
And according to this, it only applies to accessory buildings.
Right. So it sounds like there's another column,
Mhm.
another row
I
that needs to be
I see
added.
what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. I think we need to add another line item for accessory dwelling as a permissible use. And it would fall under the standards of nothing over 1,000 square feet, which is pretty uniformal.
And that would have to come back to the definitions again. What was your last comment?
Oh,
Lloyd?
to make sure that, because in the SVR, I'm almost certain an accessory. Did you find the definition of an accessory dwelling?
I did, but I'm looking at the formatted draft of the Ludmo 2022, and it is in here, and it's 1,200 square feet.
Well, no, we can't use that.
No.
No,
So
that's what.
where I got
Hey,
the definition.
gents, are you online?
We have to go off the old one.
Yes, I am.
Here's what dwelling unit. We're looking for accessory. Dang it.
Accessory dwelling.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
We made that 1,200 square foot?
Yeah, 50% and 1,200 square, 50% of the larger house.
So
Or
accessory
1,200, not to
building
exceed 1,200.
is not
Right.
used for human occupancy, which is secondary to the main structure of the same piece of property, such as a shed or a garage.
Now, in our old ordinance,
That's the one I'm looking at.
there's no accessory dwelling.
I've got just accessory building. That's it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And in our
Green
Spanish
County
Valley
fence.
ordinance.
Well, there's a
we
Yeah,
don't-
building
Bart's pretty
accessory.
thorough, and I
No,
think he would have.
there is something.
Well, this is taken
A
from.
detached subordinate building, accessory.
Say that again, please.
There's a definition for building, accessory. A detached subordinate building clearly incidental to and located upon the same lot occupied by the main building.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
But I think.
And then
after
it gets
public
into the
hearing, we
dwelling
can
units
request it be
themselves.
Installed and make that part of our recommendation.
So Lord,
Yeah. So I don't. Evidently, it's not in there. Lloyd.
But we can recommend it be in there.
Well, and it would be added here, accessory
seems that
buildings
this is
and
a-
uses, and we can.
Well, then I mean, yeah, we can do that. It would have to go back and make other revisions, meaning would have to add a definition for it. We would have to add language in the ordinance itself that allows that, and then again in the table. Yeah.
But so we could make the recommendation with that change, and you don't have to come back here. You just have to make the changes before you go to the commission. I would be all for that.
Well,
I know you probably aren't, but
no, I'm fine with that. My only worry is making sure that we get it right. So I think we need to maybe get an idea of what we're talking about on record here. Gents, can you read the definition of accessory buildings under the Spanish Valley ordinance?
Well, it's
Yeah, let me get the ordinance. Do you not have it?
no.
No, we got 15 people here, and
and I forgot my book.
none of us have the actual ordinance.
Melissa read it, and she read that definition on there.
But was that out of the Spanish Valley ordinance?
No, that
No.
wasn't out of the Spanish
There's
Valley.
no definitions in there.
Not even accessory buildings.
Accessory is defined in here.
but
In
not in
Spanish
Spanish.
Valley.
Oh, in
Oh, that is the Spanish Valley one, the 2019.
I didn't think we had definitions.
Well, maybe it's not.
I don't think we do.
Accessory buildings and uses.
Yeah, that's what we want. Is there a definition?
Nope,
What does it say?
just says P/C.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's where that came from.
So even on that one, you got to go back
Yeah.
to get a definition before this can be approved.
Okay.
Because if we have something on here that we have no definition for, I mean, it shouldn't be on there.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't I make that revision and I will email it to each of you. And
Can you describe the revision again? What is it that?
I guess the revision, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, is so you want what do you want the accessory building?
Accessory dwelling.
Okay,
no
but you
larger- as a well, I mean, the one we're going into that we're trying to approve is 1,200 square foot or less.
Yeah.
Or no more than 50% of the original structure, but whichever smaller, correct?
No. Yeah, whichever is smaller.
Yeah.
50%.
Where are you getting this definition from?
This is from our new ordinance that we're trying to get approved. So if we're going to go
Okay.
ahead and change it in this now,
Okay.
might as well make it what we're trying to make it
And-
in the next 6 months anyway.
So the
and it
definition
also
in
says
the
in here,
new ordinance. Okay.
Unless specifically permitted, an ADU may not be used as a short-term rental.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
And so
And that's why it's going to fall within this SVR ordinance as a permissible use.
you want short-term rentals in ADUs in SVR?
No.
No. So
No.
you're adding it to here, so it's
An ADU in a
just
in your
listing the
Spanish
use.
residential.
You're
Yep.
just listing the use, and it'll have a P permitted that because it says excluding short-term rentals.
Yes,
They keep short-term rentals out of.
Yeah,
Okay, I was
because
just-
they're not allowed in the Spanish Valley residential.
Okay, I
100%.
just want to make sure there
Yeah.
wasn't
Okay.
like, oh yeah, but we're gonna.
And then
allow
make
it.
sure
Yeah,
that only
back
two
in
of them.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So
We're on the same
I mean, that's my recommendation. That way we're clarifying that,
Okay.
and we're creating an amendment to the ordinance anyway. So why not make sure that's in there to cover us for the next 6 to 8 months until we
Utah code trumps all.
get our new one in.
All right. So Max pulled up the Utah code. And I'm just going to read it. As used in this section, internal accessory dwelling unit means an accessory dwelling unit created within a primary dwelling, with the footprint of the primary dwelling described in subsection blah 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 at the time the internal accessory dwelling unit is created, and for the purpose of offering a long-term rental of 30 consecutive days or longer.
Only long term.
That
Yeah.
yes, but that's a internal. That's an adjoining. An ADU unit is a separate structure within the property. They can actually be attached, or they can be separate. They just cannot be over a certain square footage.
And that's basically the
that's
only.
internal. That has to be built within the original envelope of the house.
Okay.
Is that not how I just?
Yeah,
understood
and that's
that?
consistent with what it says here too. It's got to be within the
So,
primary dwelling, so
an
within the
accessory
envelope.
dwelling unit is a small self-contained residential unit located on the same lot as an existing single-family home. An ADU has all the basic facilities needed for excuse me, day-to-day living independent of the main house, such as a kitchen, sleeping area, and a bathroom. That is the definition of a accessory dwelling unit ADU.
Well, and this says, this, again, the one that's not adopted yet, says it is not an internal accessory dwelling unit as defined by state code. It says it explicitly.
Yep. So if I was to make this recommendation, it would be describing this, not that.
Okay, why don't you articulate it just for the record, and
Okay,
so
so-
we can make that change. Otherwise, I think
But do you
we'd
want to
probably
wait till
have
we
to.
come out of the public hearing before I make?
You would want to hear
it's-
the public hearing first, yeah, yep.
Yes.
We want to turn it over and open it up to public. Because there
Yeah.
may be other things you want to consider after you hear.
Yeah.
the public has to
Yeah, so you can collect your thoughts and
Okay.
write it down.
Yep.
Any other questions, thoughts?
Well, yeah, I do
concerns?
have a question, because it is pretty glaring that it doesn't say anything about, well, what do we do with everything prior to this being adopted?
Well,
Is
the simple answer to
not
that
conforming.
is if an application is being processed prior to the adoption of this thing, then it has to go under the ordinance as it was at the time that the application started. So this would not apply.
So any existing short-term rentals, provided they serve 4 or fewer people and are existing, would be allowed.
Yes.
They'd be grandfathered in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the way the non-conforming works is it can be, so if I have 2 of them and I sell them, that non-conforming goes with the property, not the owner. But if they show a change of use, they can lose that non-conforming. So if they what is it, Mac? How long is it? There's a stretch, like if I was to roll it into long-term rentals, say I wasn't doing good with nightly rentals, and I roll it into long-term rentals for a year, there's a chance I can lose that non-conforming because I changed the use of that
Right.
land. So
Right.
so say nightly rental market falls out the bottom and everybody just turns them into long-term rentals.
Yeah.
You know I know there's a time frame and I
You
don't
try
know
to
what
go
it is.
back on there.
Yeah, I think it's on an individual basis that
Yeah.
they look at
The
a
county
totality
looks
of the
at it.
circumstances and decide if the intent was to permanently change the use.
Right. Yep.
Question then, so how do we know? Like, how do we know if there is somebody just by business license?
So not only that, they're TRT tags.
Well, that's just enforcement, which is a huge issue.
But I'm saying those are the 2 ways we would use.
But
enforcement
Nate,
is-
I mean, I think Nate kind of monitors the business licenses and the TRT coming in, I believe. So I mean, you're gonna see 0 for X amount of months. It's like, okay, here's a little red flag. Let me, send this up the line. So I think other than that, you cannot change anything on the property either in a non-conforming. You can't add to the square footage of the building.
If it burns
cannot
down,
change-
you can rebuild.
You cannot change the footprint.
Yeah.
It has to be what it was. Yep.
So Melissa, if you look at the language, and we just structured this on our new conditional use permit, you can probably read it off of your conditional use permit that you're trying to get signed tonight.
Sure, that would be helpful.
And so we have the language incorporated from the new ordinance that helps answer Melissa's question on the conditional use time period.
So, excuse me, I'm gonna fight it. So the expiration of conditional use permit, unless otherwise specified in the motion granting a conditional use permit, if the approved use has not started within 12 months from the approval date, the permit shall become null and void by operation of law. Once any portion of the conditional use begins, the framing on construction or operation of the use or uses for which the permit was granted. Sorry, I skipped a line. Sorry. Once any portion of the conditional use begins, the conditions related thereto become immediately operative and must be strictly obeyed. Use shall be construed to mean pouring of concrete or commencement of framing on construction or operation of the use or uses for which the permit was granted. So as long as they're starting something. For good cause and with a showing of substantial performance to meet the required conditions granting the permit, an applicant may apply to the Planning Commission for an extension of that 12 months. Such a request shall be made before 12 months has passed since the approval date. A request for an extension shall follow the same public hearing procedure for the original permit.
So,
But that
So
does
the
not.
non-conforming-
But non-conforming doesn't play hand in hand with
Yeah, the
conditional
non-conforming
use.
side of it is once they change that use,
Mhm.
then you just can't revert back.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's just
Your
that's just
grandfathering is
standard
gone.
zoning.
Yep.
Yes, and that's just once you change the use to a single family home,
Mhm.
you're no longer overnight rental.
And it's
you can't go back
it is. I mean,
unless it's permitted in that
right.
zone.
It is a time frame thing too, though. But if, say you don't rent it out for X amount of months or whatever, the county can come in and say, okay, you're not renting, you're not getting the revenue. You know.
I
So
it's 12 months, but we'd
I think you're right. I think it's 12 months.
That's what it says in our new Ludmo, 12 months.
Yeah, and I'm sure Alex pulled that off of something somewhere. So, and that's in the non-conforming use.
Yeah,
Yep.
non-conforming.
Any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
So I'm just a little daft. So if let's say the county commissioners approve this next month. If someone was a short-term rental but has not done anything in 12 months, they lose it? Is that what reading that was just about?
It's a that was conditional use. We're
so
non-conforming.
So I'm a little confused.
Yeah, they don't play hand in hand, but your non-conforming is, and I want to say it's 12 months. If you have no revenue or no business going on for 12 months, that's your change of use. The county can say, okay, your grandfather's over.
So anybody who's an existing short-term rental, if they can't prove they've been using it in the last year, they're out.
And that's what it is. You are gonna prove yourself.
Well, and that would be a process, because the process would be the county would try and enforce that and tell them that they don't. Then the staff would issue an opinion. The staff or myself would issue an opinion, and then they could appeal that. Then it would go up to the administrative law judge, who would issue an opinion. So that's basically how that process
how that works.
Yeah.
Okay,
On that, you're guilty till proven innocent.
Okay.
So the county comes in, you're guilty, you prove that you've been renting it or whatever it might be.
And this is the current code?
That's our current code.
Okay. So Max pointed out that on chapter 4 of the 2011 code, it says non-conforming building and uses 4.3, termination of non-conforming use. The county shall terminate all non-conforming uses except billboards by providing a formula establishing a reasonable time period during which the owner can recover or amortize the amount of his investment in the non-conforming use, if any, and the county may terminate a non-conforming use due to its abandonment. Time period for one abandonment, not 12 months. It's a year. I've interrupted.
We were close, though. I mean, we were right there.
350.
Is that a leap year? That was a leap year.
Time for abandonment, 1 year of uninterrupted vacancy as consistent with this ordinance. So that's where they're getting the 1 year from.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
It doesn't have a but. It's just like that.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Because that's more or less the way Alex explained it. It's non-conforming, and we can't take it away from you unless you change use. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Or if
And
you
that-
tried kind of like your scenario is, well, I want to add on now.
Right. Yeah, there's no add-on.
You
There's
can't add on.
Yep.
No.
Mhm.
And we've seen that on other properties where we've approved a big section of land, for this non-conforming, and so at the time it was conforming. We approved it as a conditional use, and throughout time, those individuals have used it as that, and then bought adjacent property. They're like, hey, but I want to extend this use over here. It's like, you can't. The zoning's changed.
Yep.
Just because you have that non-conforming use and it's applied today and you still use it as such, doesn't mean you can creep onto your next property with that.
Right.
Non-conforming
Right.
use. And so,
Right. But keep in mind, non-conforming works both ways.
yes.
If you talk your county into putting a Walmart in a residential zone, and they change the zoning out from under you, you're a resident in non-conforming use, and I mean that non-conforming goes both ways on this. So
Your highway
it
commercial,
usually
like
goes
the other
against
day
the
with the single-family homes.
yeah.
So is this set in stone that this start date is from when the county commissioner, depending on the recommendation, if they approve this, it starts at that point and not from when Lynn Cresswell or Alex Scoble told us
Yep.
that it was not allowed.
This is
You know
when
what I
it
mean?
starts. When the commissioners
Why
approve
why
it.
can't it be from the dates that we have been going off of from those other legal opinions?
Because if you look,
You can't retroactively make
No.
it, enforce it, pass an ordinance that has retroactive application.
I guess what I'm saying is, didn't we already have that
but will you scroll to the top under the attorneys?
established that it was not allowed?
Yes. So if you go right here. These results, these disputes have resulted in administrative and legal actions against San Juan County clarifying the short-term rental, and it was because of a word that was within it. Where was that? Where did I read that at?
I think, and
It was a lodging word that was put in there. That's why they won against the county.
Yeah, so basically Lynn got, I don't want to say he got it wrong, but Lynn came out and advised us that short-term rentals were allowed in the SVR district.
Linden?
Yeah, in his opinion.
I don't think so. Are you sure? I thought he established that it was not allowed in the SBR
Well, we've had
ordinance.
multiple attorney opinions, and they've been crossways,
Yeah,
and so.
and I
that's
get
kind of
them
been
mixed
the-
up, to be honest
You
with
had
you.
Alex's interpretation, Lynn's
Mhm.
Yeah.
interpretation. And so, and then the Utah
Yeah.
Ombudsman's office interpretation, and so
Yeah.
that's when he, and this is kind of good to know, and it's kind of a step that we put in place intentionally, is when we make a decision, we have an opportunity to appeal. And you go to the ALJ, and the individuals can appeal to that ALJ. If they don't like that decision, they can go to the state of Utah Ombudsman office and get a different opinion. All of this takes place before taking it to district court. You go to district court, and that's expensive, and so through these processes and these steps, we can refine things if we've got it wrong at our level, planning commission, commissioner level, staff level, and all of this is the precursor before going to district court and really battling it out. And so as we come to, and it, they had an opinion here, and staff may have had an opinion that may have been wrong or right, and you go through that process, which we did on this, you take it to the state ombudsman. That's kind of the last step before you go right into district court. And so we've chosen here, it's like, okay, let's put it out there. This is our clarification.
Yeah.
This is it. Everybody's opinion is this going forward. And that enacts when we released it as a public notice on our website. We also noticed it on Utah Public Notice so that everybody is aware. So any applications before that, any owners or that were using that, they would fall under this old question, whether they were used or not.
But what about all those plat maps that we had them record that note that
It
said
still follows this ordinance.
But-
this just clarifies.
right?
it
So
even
they
further.
now can't do short-term rentals,
Correct.
even though they technically could
They
have.
could have. Yep.
Yeah, so,
So
there's
I mean,
different.
if I was a property owner and I had
No,
my
but this just clarifies that same statement in there. So all we have in there is under
what it
current
is, I
ordinance.
guess is really the point.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and it basically boils down to what Lloyd was saying is it came down to the definition of a lodging house is the
They're
difference
running somewhere, I
between.
don't know where
I
that-
had that mixed up. Lynn said that short-term rentals were not allowed in the SVR district.
Ombudsman said they were.
Yeah, and it came down to a difference between their interpretation of the definition of lodging house. But I think Lynn was, quite honestly, was trying to help us out a little bit, Probably shouldn't say that.
So I've got a question. So So a subdivision that was approved by the county commissioners, say 6 years ago, when it was approved, within the minutes, the proposer of it said that this subdivision is to be for nightly rentals. When it was approved with the idea that it would be nightly rentals. So when this subdivider goes in to start his project in the next couple years, it still exists because it was approved with the idea that it was to be townhomes or condominiums, nightly rentals.
Yeah, but there's something in the ordinance that says subdivision work has to be commenced within a certain period of time. Otherwise, you lose your vestiture. There's something in there.
I was told completely different by two other attorneys.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the subdivision doesn't guarantee you the.
yeah. I mean, just because you have those entitlements,
Mhm.
you've got. I think I know it says it in there that it says that you can lose those entitlements if you don't.
Your vested rights.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if you don't commence within a certain period of time. So
And what is the?
I would have to look at it. You ask all these questions on these detailed ordinances. 20 years ago, I probably could have answered like that, but
But this
I've done
really
too
has
much
hurt
damage.
people both ways.
100%.
I mean,
Yeah.
what was the lady's name that came in that wanted to rezone?
The little gal on Marion
Marion.
Court.
And she showed us everybody around her.
Oh, the one on Mount Hill. Yes. Yep.
You know, and that was
Mhm.
SVR, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she showed us everybody around her
Yep.
was doing short-term rental and how her being unable to affected her property value, you know? And you look at it and I was like, well, she's right. Everybody is. It's
Yep.
not like,
But we did not allow.
but we did not allow her
spot
rezone, spot zone,
Mm-hmm.
but here we are, you know, she should come in tomorrow.
But this doesn't change that.
I know, but on the same hand, I'm just saying it has affected
Oh yeah, both sides.
both
Mhm.
sides. Some have, I guess, squeaked through, and some have.
Yep.
Not. However you want to look at it, I guess, whichever side you're on.
Hey, have we taken any public comment yet?
Mm-mm.
Can we?
When the commission's through discussing.
I think we need to take public comment so we can discuss the public's comments.
So we can get out of here.
Thanks, Mitch. Oh, the public's gonna ask you questions. Where you going?
Okay, any public comment in the house?
You guys do a good job.
I think you guys have answered my question. My question is about the grandfather. Our question is about the grandfather. And Colby may want to say something. He's online.
He made you come and.
No, I wanted to come.
Okay.
I wanted to see everybody this new year, you know. I mean, I'm obviously just really glad we're clarifying this. And glad that the position is that we're not going to allow them. The confusing part is the grandfathering. You know, who gets grandfathered and who doesn't. And now I'm clear on what was said in the August 8th commission meeting by our AJL, by our, you know, and the fact that there's now new information that I didn't have before, that Colby and I didn't have before. So I'm figuring out all those pieces. But I think the community is going to have questions about that. You know, just more broadly, like what happens if you don't get your license and you're operating kind of under the radar screen, and
Then you should lose your. You should not get a license.
That's what I think.
You should, if you're not paying your taxes and you're not paying for your licensing, you should not. Yeah.
That's what I think. And it would just be, I hope we could find some way to make it really clear that people that have been operating, but have been operating without the appropriate license and paying the appropriate taxes, they're subject to enforcement.
Right.
Which is
Absolutely.
you
100%.
can't-
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
I think that's important.
Yeah, because I think we've had the business license for how long now?
A long time.
Yeah. I think it's been long
2 or 3
enough that
years.
you can't pull the, oh, I didn't know San Juan was doing that now.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of past that. And especially the ones that don't pay their TRT tax.
Right.
They're not collecting it and they're not paying it.
Absolutely.
They might be collecting it.
They might be
Yeah.
collecting it, but it's just not fair to the rest of the county. So
Can you
I'm gonna drive from up here.
unmute? Okay, so we're opening up to the people online for public comment.
We'll just go with Colby Smith. I'm not sure who had their first. Go ahead, Colby.
Sure. Since Holly introduced, said I might have an additional comment. I don't really, other than to beg for sympathy. Before we sent the email earlier today, we did listen for an hour and 45 minutes to again, this was my second time through it, the work session that the commission had on August 8th, where Lynn Cresswell said that that overnight accommodations were not a permitted use in the SVR. Obviously, you've since received different information, and that makes a big difference. The only other thing I will add is, I know you were talking earlier about that provision in the SVR ordinance about accessory buildings and uses. The way I always read that was that accessory buildings were permitted, but accessory uses were conditional. And I can give an example of that because we built an accessory building on our property this year, a new studio where I work on my photography. And that building is fine and is permitted. But if I were to start, to run a gallery out of there and try to bring people by to buy my photography, I might have a question whether that's a permitted use or one that we might need to get a conditional use permit for, because it is in a residential area. It's actually in an A1 zone, but anyway, that's the way I always understood that, if that helps any of you as you think about it. So that's all.
Thanks, Colby.
You'd also have to get a home-based business license, which is a separate.
If I ever did it, Mitch, I would. I guarantee it.
okay, we're watching for a gallery.
Did you get a building permit for that accessory building?
We did, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we got kind words about how well we built it. So there you go.
All right, Monet Clark. Monet, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just trying to get my camera to turn on. Oh, good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to say that I read the comments that Holly and Colby have already submitted to you about this. And I share those very same concerns. I live in the SVR zone in Spanish Valley, and a number of new dwellings have been built right around me. I mean, big houses, and I'm not sure that they are, whether they're doing nightly rentals and calling it their relatives coming to stay or what, but I have questions about uses right around me, and I know other people the same situation. And so we haven't heard anything about how to enforce this ordinance. And I'm wondering if you might go over just plans for enforcing the short-term rental ordinance. And then I'm still confused about the grandfathering part. And after listening to what you said tonight, I really think that for the benefit of everybody, we should you should clarify things very, very detailed, really, in the short-term rental ordinance, and because otherwise, you're just going to have a lot more. Well, even you're confused, and there should be no confusion in the legal document. I say that as a technical writer. So all the things that Colby and Holly brought up, I think you got to answer those in writing. Now, it may not have to be in the ordinance, but just for your own clarity and thinking, I think you should go through each one of them and write up what the thinking is and the source from where you are drawing that conclusion, whether that is Utah state law, your existing ordinances, or your ordinance you want to get passed. There's so much that you've talked about tonight that my head is just whirling. But anyway, y'all are trying very, very hard, and I'm in 100% support of getting some enforcement here, and any clarification on the plans there, I appreciate. Thank you.
Thanks, Monette. Any other online public comment?
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure, Jens, go ahead.
Just remember that grandfathered uses apply to something that has been used in a particular way. So a subdivision purchased with the intent of overnight rentals does not qualify unless they built the structures and they used them as overnight rentals. You have to have the use and show you've used it in order to qualify.
Well,
And second,
can I ask something real quick? So if somebody gets documentation in as per, this is my plan to the building department, well, they're grandfathered in. There's no structure.
I disagree. You can have all the plans in the world, but until you do it, you don't qualify. It's no grandfathered intentions, it's grandfathered uses.
Yeah, so, because that's my misunderstanding of the law, because everything I've seen, what you guys have gone through in the last little while, is most of those that were in place, they were approved, and because, I mean, well, let's look at Love's. Let's throw this one on there. Love's is going to be able to go through with it because they had paperwork in place.
Their application was approved before. That's a different thing. If you have an application that's approved, then you're a grandfather. But if you don't have an application,
But they don't have a building.
well,
You see what I'm saying?
okay, you have to at least have an application for approval. Then you start your building.
Okay.
I mean, it's all the same thing. You can't have a subdivision and say, this is my plan. You've got to have an application approved, or a building, or a use.
And you've got to commence that within a certain period of time. But
okay.
I just want to say a couple things about the ordinance. The Spanish Valley, the residential district, was always intended to be residential, and it was written to have no commercial use. Nightly rentals, in the minds of those that wrote it, in the minds of the county, was a commercial use. But the courts have said, because nightly rentals involve sleeping, eating, showering, doing what you do at home, they're residential uses, even though it's a commercial purpose. And they've essentially overridden what counties and cities have written in their ordinances. And they've come back and said, unless it specifically prohibits overnight rentals, it essentially does not prohibit it.
Yeah.
And so that's the catch that we got caught in. I still believe that we should, this ordinance this change that's being proposed, I think is great because it just clarifies it 100%. But when you look at the Spanish Valley ordinance as a whole, we do say where it's allowed and where it's excluded. It's just that we say it not in the way that like the ombudsman's office wanted to interpret it. I don't necessarily agree with their decision, but this at least will remove all doubt. So anyway.
Well said.
Thanks, Jens.
Elise, thanks for waiting. Go ahead.
Hi, Elise Erler with Sitla. I just want to make an overview comment, and that is I think I commend the Planning Commission for looking at this and going forward with this so that County Commission can clearly approve where there is short-term rental not allowed. So thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So be it.
Got a
To
motion?
move out of public hearing.
I'll second.
And a second to move out of the public hearing.
I guess that's all public comments.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Now, am I
Huh? We're not done
under
yet. We
the
got building
impression
permits. Well,
that this is a vote?
Now say that again.
Are we gonna be voting on this?
It's a recommendation.
Recommendation.
Yeah, and if kind of like if you had discussed earlier, if there's
Some
changes that you'd like to recommend in that, we'll push that to the attorneys to make sure that they look at it. One of the public comments on there is, I'd like to address just on enforcement in our ordinance. And in the past, we've always relied on our planning administrator staff to do the enforcement. Would push it to our attorneys and write letters of, cease and desist to individuals. The commissioners this year had approved funds to hire either a part-time or full-time enforcer so that they can help us in these areas to go out. There's a lot of concerns with overnight rentals that we have as staff, as if they're under the radar, or even those that are existing, making sure that they're compliant with fire code, things like that. We really haven't dropped in
We're
to
missing
check.
out on revenue with the service district over it.
Absolutely, and so we need to ramp up our efforts on the enforcement, and this will help curb some of that. If the difficult part that we have is the state legislators have done a really good job, and half of them are developers, and so they've kind of put restrictions on how we can find these individuals that are out marketing, Airbnbs. We can't use a website. We can't use a program to find them. A lot of it has to be word of mouth, and we've had individual citizens, especially that live in the Spanish Valley residential area, that have listed in their neighborhood. I know that they're doing it. They've walked their streets and they pointed out to us, and that's really how we need to receive that message from the public, that there's short-term rentals that are popping up in my neighborhood. Is this allowed or not? But it takes the citizens to send us a complaint, send us hey, I'm concerned about this home next to me that's doing it, or in my neighborhood that's doing it, knowing that, did they come in? And are they non-conforming, or are they secretive doing it? Because we really have to protect even those individuals that are coming into the county to stay in approved overnight rentals, that they're protected, that they have the carbon monoxide, poisoning systems in the residence, that if it's a basement, that they can actually escape out of the window well and have access to egress out if there's a fire up on top, if there are fire extinguishers in the building. So we've got to ramp up our level, and it's kind of seems like to me here in San Juan County is a lot of times we're behind, and the development is advancing forward and we're just playing catch up. Well, this is in a typical environment, normal environment. You would have that inspector that can go out and inspect after the existing use is there, and we issue a building or a business license for that use, that there's some follow-up inspections that are taking place. We're hoping that this enforcement officer or enforcement person can then become that for us and start to wrangle those that aren't approved back in, and there will be citations that follow those that aren't. But then also the inspections on those that are, and making sure that they are paying their tax, because they are acting as a lodging or that business that needs to pay their appropriate tax. And we know that there's some that aren't, that haven't been, but we can't use our resources that we have. We have to rely on the public to basically just tell us where the concerns are and what the issues are. You know, Mitch has done a great job, and his staff with Jen's, in creating a nuisance ordinance. We hear that a lot, as well as, you know, the side-by-sides running up and down the street at all hours of the night. Well, that nuisance ordinance will come into play as well, so that we can hopefully help mitigate some of these. As we look at the future designs in our streets, you know, it's making sure that our streets are constructed in a manner that kind of naturally slows down. We have an officer in the area, and you can't do enough policing at times. And so by your street design, we can slow the traffic down just by how you design and incorporate these street systems within this area. And so it's kind of, we always feel like we're behind and need to play catch up, and we're slowly getting there.
It would be nice if the public could go to the county website and look at who's got business licenses, for example. Because, you know, if I suspect a home is doing a short-term rental, it'd be nice to not have to go to you guys. I could go to the website and see if that address has a business license to run a short-term rental or not.
Yeah. Let me see if I can
that would
do,
be
if
one
we can do
indicator
that.
you guys already know about them. Because, you know, as residents, we don't know if who's legit and who's not, who you know about, who you don't. But if we can already find out just by looking at, you know, if that could be public knowledge.
Or we can spot them, you know, as we get into our GIS system. If we can put it on there on a map that you can click on that layer and go right to these areas. These buildings have been approved for overnight rentals. They use it. They have the business license, and it's already checkered on that planning map.
Yeah. Well, however, you know, it just
So we'll
might
get there.
Make it easier.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that people aren't, you know, telling on legitimate.
The same person over and over.
Yeah,
Like,
they're legitimate.
now I'm getting harassed.
It's a tattletale state, though. I mean, I hate to be. I mean, because so I built a small house on my farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at first I thought, well, maybe I'd overnight it, but I didn't. So I rent it to White Mesa Mill. They use it a couple times a month. Is all. They'll have some people fly in. They stay there. It's not a hotel. Anyways, that they lease it. They pay me a monthly thing. But I always have people like, oh, how's the overnight rental going? I'm like, well, it's not overnight rental. It's a long-term rental. Well, we don't ever see anybody there, and then we'll see somebody there. I'm like, but I just,
Yeah.
and I understand, but on the same hand, like, I've been in the city office in Blanding and these places, and it's just, everybody should pay their fair share. Everybody should be above the law, but the tattletale stuff, you'll find that you'll have an enormous list of grievances. There's always grievances. It amazes me with people's grievances, but somebody's going to be overwhelmed.
I wish
Yeah.
people did follow the rules. If people did follow the rules,
Lots of people do.
Make it easy. There are those honest
I'm
ones.
saying lots of
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
It's like I came to the
Yeah.
business office, should I, or, you know, licensing, should I get one for that? And they're like, well, you're not overnight, so no.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yep.
well, so maybe.
Well, that's almost a neighborly conversation about, hey, what are you doing over here? And, you know.
They,
Well, part
they
of me
want
is
to know
like,
his business.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, none of your damn business either.
And you
Like,
can tell
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Guilty
there is
until
that.
proven innocent.
Yeah. I hear what you're
So,
saying.
anyways.
Yep. You got to be careful with it. And that's what I worry about, having a list of all of the businesses that have business license. A lot of individuals that do have the overnight rentals will go with Airbnb as a company, and Airbnb does all of the registering and business licensing for them. And so oftentimes if they're under that umbrella, you won't see that location listed for the business license. What you see is Airbnb has applied for it.
Then how does the county know if they have a business license?
On the tracking, we track it internally, but I don't know if we could release some of that information. We'd have
See,
to
all
check.
of ours, they're personally, the business license. are
Listed.
personally done. Yeah. Yeah. That way they know they're getting renewed and stuff.
That's
Because
Andrea's job.
Yeah, that's Andrew's job, but there's, like, so your VRBO and all of them, you don't want, it's easier to just do one and then you can hire different outlets come in.
Bring them all in.
Mhm.
They pay your tax and everything else on there.
Yep.
We have followed up, as we know of something, we can also request of the tax commission that they also perform an audit, and they would perform that audit for us as well on that business
Does
that
the
is
county
there.
have a way to cross-check?
Yeah, that's how we do it.
That's
Is
how we
exactly
do the
that.
tax
And so
commission.
we have a individual that's been assigned to us from the tax commission that if we ever alert them to anything like that, then they'll do a check on it.
Maybe they need yard signs. We're legit.
We're legit.
Don't
Have
call
a
on us.
have a legit
Max signature at the bottom.
legit
We're
sign. Yep. County approved. Yeah.
Stamp of approval, right.
Yeah. County logo with a little Airbnb symbol on there.
I don't know. I mean, because I'm just
I
imagining
think
how many
it's a
people are
great
going to
idea.
call you about, a residence that's really
Legit.
Legit.
And then neighbors are harassing them all the time. Are you legit? Of course. We told you last year.
Did you see the sign in the yard?
Yeah, that's exactly. See? Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Make 'em and sell 'em.
I think the biggest point for us is
Then I'll pay sales tax.
it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute to get there to catch up. For us, it's more about that safety and the wellness of the citizens around there, and creating these healthy communities. And so let's get the enforcement in place and start enforcing harder, and then with that, hopefully, and sometimes you hate government regulation, but we're hoping that we can kind of steer this into betterment rather than creating more harm.
Can I add something? So when we've got a couple in Garfield County. When we applied for our business license there, they send you a checklist, and you go through this checklist, and you have to have everything. You've got to have a map of the yard, where they can park. I mean, it's everything. Your exits, where,
Awesome.
How many fire extinguishers you have to have.
Yep.
The building department, which they came out of what I think Ridgeville, cost $385 for them to come and make sure they do everything that they send you this checklist. So you have the time.
Yep.
Whenever you want them to come up, you have this checklist you go through, make sure everything's done before it's inspected.
Great idea.
They
Yep.
only require it one time, and you're in compliance the day you get that license.
And they don't
If you
follow
drop that
up?
license and you let it lapse over a certain amount of time, and you go to reapply for it, you get the
Recertify?
building inspector
Okay.
back. So
Okay.
that might be. I know we're understaffed with the building department.
Yep, but with this
but-
enforcement, you can place those,
Mhm.
that
Yep.
checklist and have that in a system. So at the time they apply for a business license for an Airbnb,
Mhm.
here's the conditions you always have
Yep.
to meet. And I think that's a good idea. It's a wise idea. When you looked at the conditional use for that, that canvas tent site out there, it was kind of those same. We put those conditions, that conditional use. Well, now a year into him being that use, we've got to somehow check to make sure he's following those conditions and he's protecting those individuals that are staying there, offering the materials, for safety and that. And so in that, and the things that we do, and especially on the conditional uses, is making sure that we're following up on those. And a lot of that is that enforcement. It's kind of hard to live off and operate in an environment where it's just word of mouth.
Right.
But if you have somebody driving around at night and you don't know the neighbors, and then they keep on rotating cousins every night, then as we see those ourselves, then we can also correct those problems. But I do like that idea of the checklist, and then we'll, once we get the individual here, then we can start to refine that a little more.
And that would give our building department a little more revenue too.
Well, and it's not, you hate to fee people and get revenue off that, but I think a lot of it is just, we have a protest from individuals there in Spanish Valley. I mean, I can't remember if it was 40 individuals that signed up and says, we're tired of this. You know, you're harming our peacefulness, our investment in the neighborhood. We've lived there forever. And now look what you're doing. You need to stop. You know, and so a lot of it is just putting peace and harmony and that comfortable living environment back into these areas that are kind of right now just a hot mess.
Especially if anybody wants to do a short-term rental, the county, we have approved hundreds of potential future units for them to invest in. So,
and you have to allow it. It's something that has to be permitted in your zoning.
It's not like
but
there's not an opportunity to own a short-term rental in our county.
Right.
Yep.
You know, we're not taking that away.
No.
We're trying to encourage it, incentivize it in places
and manage it.
Want
it
to be.
Yeah. And it's definitely, you know, those that aren't paying their TRT tax, it's making sure that they are paying that, because every little bit helps.
Well, second offense, they lose their business license and their use, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And now and just understand the business license. For the longest time, staff here had attempted to get business licenses here, and it kind of took an effort or an act of COVID for us to get that, because here we had these COVID funds that we could then grant to businesses. It's like, well, we don't even know who the businesses are. Let us start this business license process and get people in here to sign up for the business license. And with that comes this allowance and opportunity for grant funding. You know, let us know who you are. And so we were able to get that enacted. But with business licenses also comes managing that system. Every year they got to renew. And so it takes an employee there that's after them and following through with it. And it takes citations and things like that for those businesses that we're aware of. And that's why it's interesting enough with that. You see some of these individuals coming forward for conditional uses, for the uses that they're already out there doing to make them compliant with zoning, because they can't get a business license until they're compliant with zoning. And so that it kind of goes hand in hand in that system, how we treat it. But it is a management and a staff responsibility to do, which you just can't stop once you start those processes and just say, okay, we don't want to do business licenses anymore. It's something that you have to continue to do and work with. And you create those efficiencies in the system as you discover some of these issues and how do we manage this and how do we make it easier and more efficient for staff and for the public as well.
I will say our economic department has a pretty good hold on
business licenses.
On what's going
yes,
on out
do.
there.
Absolutely.
And who is operating under the radar and
well, I hope so. I drove them around.
at some point, you know, we have to curb the more so that we can catch up on the past. And that's what this does, is it curbs it so that we can then get an enforcement officer in here so that they can get us caught up and, you know, get everybody right and straight.
Lloyd, you got
So we know where they are. We just gotta go
you
get
got some
them.
language for a motion.
Sure. Are you ready for one? I don't know where the little pointer is. I lost it.
No. Wait, where's the mouse? Oh, he stole it.
Here, I've got one. You want this one?
Are you the other one driving?
He's not doing much.
I can't.
Someone else is
I
driving.
can't ever find the little pointer. There it is.
There we go.
Okay.
What do you want? Agenda?
The table.
The table. You like buzzed right past it.
Sorry, I bet.
Up,
Coming in hot.
Right
there we go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to make a motion to recommend this to the commissioners for approval. It's an amendment to our Spanish Valley residential district, and it's to stop any future short-term rentals. I would like to modify it if we could. to include ADU units specifically, because that is actually addressed with a definition as a permissible use. And then to clarify or separate accessory buildings and uses, so we know accessory buildings is permissible and accessory uses is a conditional use. So maybe two different line items, or specify or clarify on the specific use what we're looking at.
Okay, I got a motion
I'll second it.
and a second to make a recommendation to the San Juan County Commission, just to clarify short-term rentals prohibited in the SVR, and with changes as recommended.
Amendment to my motion. Sorry, Trent. I want to add, I want to use the language that we have in our new ordinance that we're trying to approve for the definition on that ADU. It was 50%.
50%.
Less than 50% of the original residence, or 1,200 square feet, or whichever is less of the two.
Smaller.
Yep. I'm sorry.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that. And do you also want to clarify that it's a separate building on the same lot, or just
It doesn't. It can actually be attached to that building. It just doesn't have to be within it.
Okay.
So.
So a non-internal structure.
Yes, a non-internal. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think you need to clarify that. Yeah.
And your second is
No, I'm good.
still good.
I'm
Okay.
good with it.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Thank you.
I forgot we were doing that.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay. Building permit review.
We
Okay.
have a couple months to catch up on building permits, but it is the dead of winter, so there's not too many. So this takes us back to middle of November, and you can see what is going on there.
I have a request. Can you put the town in along with the building address, so it's clear whether something is Bluff versus Blanding versus.
Say Navajo Twins
Sure.
Drive is Bluff.
Yeah. Well, Steve Simpson is Bluff. I mean, there's
She's like, I got
no doubt about that. But it would be really helpful if with the building address it said Bluff or Blanding or Spanish.
Sure. Okay. We'll see if we can.
And that-
Yes, we can add that in.
This is off of iWorks, isn't it?
Yes.
So it depends on how Ben types it in.
Right.
Okay.
But we'll be able to do that on the next one.
I have two questions.
Yes.
LaSalle Junction. We have a brand new metal building.
I don't think it's on here.
I haven't seen it. There was no pylons or pilasters poured for it. I mean, I know we don't have a ag exempt. I don't know.
See you, Mitch.
Where that's going. I know that a lot's going on there,
Mhm.
and I haven't seen one permit since the day it was purchased.
And that is on our radar.
Okay.
And as soon as we can get that enforcement,
So we can catch up.
we'll be on it.
Okay. The other question I haven't seen a permit on. They've done everything else on their side for us. I haven't seen a permit on all the power that was put in for the St. Danes.
For which one?
St.
96.
Is that? Did you say Vacaeus?
No,
St. Danes.
Oh, okay.
So, and there's 96 new pedestals.
Yeah,
So I know there's got to be a permit there somewhere. We did catch them in the middle, and said, okay, we're not moving along until we get impact fees paid.
Okay.
And we went ahead and got that taken care of, but I didn't know where the county was on it.
Okay.
Because with a campground, I mean, unless you're building something,
Absolutely.
I mean, we see things moving. I mean, that's another one of those non-conforming that expands
Yeah.
because there's not an overlay on it at this point. So,
Sure.
but
Yeah, we'll look into it. See what's
Ratting out
going
his
on there.
neighbor.
No, he's going all vigilante on us here.
Well, man,
Doing
this
nightly
is a lecture about
drive-bys.
telling on everybody.
It's this magical enforcement agent. I think it's you.
We're
until-
looking
until
for
they
somebody.
hire somebody. I think it's Kristen.
Me and the economic development guy have a deal that we don't want to die alone, so we'll go together.
We go. No, I was just questioning the permits. Is all I was asking.
No, and thank you for
Especially
bringing
that
those
one
two
up
up.
at
Well,
LaSalle Junction. The metal building
Yeah.
got tore
Yeah,
down
that's terrible.
at Ned Dalton's old
Right.
place, and then they hauled it out there and put it up and never seen a permit one.
Turn down edge.
Oh, yeah.
On the concrete.
Yep.
No foundation under it.
No frost depth.
No frost
No.
depth. No frost protection. I mean, the whole thing has to be tore out of there.
Yeah.
All of that crap.
no, we'll look into them.
Or proved up.
I don't want to die alone.
I don't want to die alone.
How about, has anybody asked about new manufactured on Wildflower Circle? I think it is.
I
There's a
thought I
lot,
saw.
you know about it?
Which one?
Wildflower Circle.
So we got two down at the end of four-wheel drive, right?
Four-wheel drive.
Which is the opposite end,
Okay.
correct?
I didn't know that's called four-wheel drive.
Who named it four-wheel drive?
Rick McLean. John's buddy.
Pretty much cul-de-sacs over there too.
He's a good guy.
He is.
So it's on Wildflower.
Well, I've just heard neighbors question whether or not I think
He's been in
they're
here a few
suspected
times.
Yeah.
to not have all of the utilities and or even short-term renting it. Is my understanding. I don't know,
Okay.
but good. Somebody might know something about it.
So east, down towards your place.
Yeah, behind me.
Which one? So that one's been there forever. That one's been there forever. That's yours.
Keep going that way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, over in this.
So right here, there's two brand new ones put in.
Okay.
I actually called Ben on those because the plat that I had seen, it was different, and actually Scott was still there. Tony Scott too on it. Both those were permitted. There was actually two new ones that got put in there.
Okay.
So
Like-
before I hooked those up, I made sure they were permitted.
Okay. And is there skirt or no skirt on it?
That's up to
That's
Ben.
Lovely.
Yeah.
We'll follow up on it. Good.
I did get an email from Marjorie Hahn. I don't know if anybody else did, but somebody's where she lives out in Old LaSalle. People are moving junk.
Yes, it's on our radar that
Yeah, I heard that.
there are bucket squatters in the bushes, and
Nice.
we're starting to head that direction.
Okay. With that, I'd like to remind everybody it's Bluff Balloon Festival this weekend, so if you can attend and help support that, that'd be awesome.
That's always fun event.
Oh, mercy sakes, it's cold out there.
It's Beehive Brawl
Several years.
in Richfield too.
Most of them
Oh.
are cold.
You're cold.
Wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Yep, I make it.
I
Always.
second that. See, I can agree with
Motion and a second to adjourn. Everybody raise their hand.
Yeah,
All
you
those
didn't raise your hand.
Out of here.
Jeez, all this is like a short one. I'm like, really?
Yeah, who put that? You did. You wrote that.
Everybody's in their baseball caps over here.
Everybody keeps asking me for originals in this, so I'm just telling you. I've been telling you things. But anyway, I'd like to see it. I'll do what I can in blending. So, and really, like, I need to get a little more acquainted with this creek and map because,
So,
like,
The light, we got one glimpse of.
yeah,
put weights on my knee.
like